Hello. Today we are going to talk about ceilings, different types of ceilings, also to continue to see and explore the materials and the different types of shapes that they can have that can transform completely the ceiling of our spaces. So ceilings, they are the overhead surfaces or surfaces that covers a room. It could be underside of a floor or of a roof. They could be painted, they could be flat, they could emphasize structural elements, they could have like an overall pattern, they could have like hang vegetation on them. So there are different ways to explore and treat a ceiling. From, let's say, from the past, we know little of Greek ceilings, but Roman ceilings, we know that they were very rich with relief and painting, and we can see that from the Pompey baths vaults. From the Gothic period, there was a general tendency to use structural elements decoratively in a development of the beam ceiling. And then in the Renaissance, later on, they kind of, in Italy, they developed three types of ceilings that were kind of elaborated. One that was the coffered ceiling. It was a complex design, and it could have like circular, square, octagonal, L-shaped coffers. They could vary a lot. Normally, they were each coffered decorated with a rosette. The second type consists of ceilings wholly or partially vaulted. And later on in the Baroque period, they were also used with fantastic figures, also like inside to decorate the ceilings of this type. And then the third type, that it's one that it's most well known for Venice. It's the ceiling that became one large frame picture, as in the Doge Palace. In the modern architecture, ceilings kind of make like a division between two major types. The suspended or hang ceiling, that it's kind of covering all the structure and mechanical parts that are above it, or in another hand, the exposed ceiling, that it's showing all the structural elements and all the mechanical and electrical parts that and water pipes or lightning fixtures that we have in the ceiling. We have this kind of the exposed structural system. It's important and in a way had to be provided so that the development of the mechanical parts or the structures could accompany like the vision of the architecture in a way that it could be exposed to the users. And I think this is clear what I try to explain here in this slide. This is a picture of the Venice Biennale 2014 from the exhibition Elements of Architecture that was provided or mentored by Ram Koolers. And he says that the ceiling has become a thick volume full of machinery of which the architect has very little to say. So here this picture, I think it's clear and wise because it contrasts what we explored or we talked before, that was the ceilings of the previous historical periods of architecture, very well decorated, nicely shaped, and then what we have nowadays in to deal with, that is all this machinery, all this belly of a false ceiling that radically changed the way that architects were able to kind of manipulate the idea of the ceiling. So here he says, he also emphasized that architecture today, it's little more than cardboard. If you have the opportunity to research a little bit more about this exhibition, I think it will be really good for you to even see some videos of explanation. And I have some photos here in the slides, but it's not the same thing as if you actually can research a little bit more, because you can see the catalogs that they have created for the different elements of architecture and how they kind of prove or explain visually the history of the different elements that are important for us as architects. We have different types of ceilings. We have the single plane, we have the cove ceiling, coffered, we have vaults, we have domes, and we have skylights. I have some examples here. Of course, now that we are like kind of ending with the lectures of the interior design space, you should be able to merge all the knowledge gained till now from the colors, the different type of materials, floors, walls. Of course, I'm kind of concentrating myself more in the ceiling, but also pay attention to relations between the type of light and the ceiling. It's very expressive when you look at the two things together. So again, you could have just plain ceilings that then could be painted. They could be just monotone. They could have suspended light, track light. They also could have natural light pay along with it. Here are some examples of cove ceilings and how they could be just one direction, or from the two kind of directions, creating kind of a rhythm between them, or just curve within the corridor of the space. Then we have the coffered ceiling, and ranging from, let's say, the most classical ones like the Pantheon in Rome, from a contemporary approach of Kengokuma. And then we have some more examples, a couple of examples of vaults from, again, the same thing, more historical, right, kind of refurbish ceilings to the accommodation of vaults within a kind of more modern approach. The same thing here, and how the light reflects and effects coming from inside, coming from the wall, reflecting from the walls upwards to the ceiling. Some examples of domes, glass domes, acrylic domes, and then kind of more concrete domes, a little bit more mass against, let's say, the transparency of the other two. Then how we can include the skylights, just normal skylights with windows, kind of frame acrylic parts that kind convey the light for an interior, in kind of outdoor indoor space. And also the third one, how the skylight that has water on top reflects and absorbs the light coming into the interior space. We could also have ceilings made of fabric. We have this kind of ropes design in the left side, and also this one in an atrium, or even this one, the right side, with a net that it's kind of playful for kids to interact. We can also have ceilings made out of wood that can work in a kind of a grid alignment, or can make a pattern just dropping down, or being recessed in the ceiling, and even have like the lights again incorporated between them. A couple more examples of wood, like kind of a coffered ceiling wood, or just frames above that can still have the exposed ceiling on top, but then creates another level for our eyes. Some examples of metal ceilings, again, carved, plain, and then working with kind of tubular, like cylinders that also have incorporated the light inside them, creates different kind of atmospheres on them. Some more ideas here, kind of overlapping, interlaced. Also a ceiling made out of mirror. It reflects a little bit what we also have seen with the walls made out of mirror too. Ceilings that are kind of, they born with the columns, and how do they match the walls with the ceiling criterias. Also how the natural light versus artificial light works with the ceiling. That could be in a vault, or could have an angle. The same thing, how the natural versus artificial light goes in the middle of the lamellas, in the middle of the tubular units. It kind of goes down the walls also. So as we can understand, it's important to talk about this topic of the ceilings. We couldn't explain ceilings without talking about light. So I'm going to incorporate both things in one lecture. We already have seen some examples of ceilings and how the materials can be used. I also draw your attention to how the lighting was incorporated into specific parts of the ceiling. Now let's talk about light, meaning natural and also artificial light in architecture. There is a quote from Louis Kahn that says that the sun never knew how great it was until it hit the side of a building. Architects, lighting, it's very important for architects and interior designs. In architecture design, we use light to achieve a particular aesthetic effect, but also to fulfill the human needs regarding natural lighting, electric lighting, or both. And for the design process, we always have to take into account the kind of human activity that is taking place. So which type of activity, which type of light do I need to provide? The amount of light required, so it will be different if you need to provide light to read a book or just, to watch TV, for example. The color of light, as it may affect the seeing of a particular object and the environment as a whole. The same thing. Is it like, do I need to provide light for you to be able to perform some kind of a specific task? Then it should be light that is suitable for this type of thing. If it's just like a visual or something like an effect where you don't have to be doing a specific type of an activity that requires a stable light, then you can play with the light. The distribution of light within the space to be lighted, whether indoor or outdoor. And then also the effect of the lighted system itself on the user. We already talked about the color psychology, also the light, it's the same thing. It creates the amount of light, the type of light, the reflection of light will have a human response to it. So we have to provide natural and artificial light in a balance that the users can easily see everything without any type of discomfort. So with light, we can create different effects or feelings. We can create atmosphere. We can direct or concentrate the attention. We can control shade or shadow. We can emphasize or modify a spatial perception of something. There are here two examples. So natural light versus artificial light. The daylight, it's very important to be considered in interior design and architecture projects. And we should always think that is a combination both of direct and indirect sunlight. That could be all through the day. The daylight, it's determined of the shapes in terms of size and shape. It interferes with the type of daylight that enters the space. Also the type of facade, roof or ceiling, and also the size, shape, position, and amount of windows, doors, or skylights in a specific project, and the solar orientation, also depending on the season and the country that we are designing for. The daylight is sometimes used as a main source of light during daytime in buildings. It should be, especially if we want to go for sustainable architecture. We should use as much daylight as we can to reduce the energy bills. But we also need to provide artificial light because we need to use it whenever we don't have the sun outside. Now, for the artificial light, there are three basic elements that we need to think about. We need to think about the light source, so the quantity and quality of the light. We need to think about light fitting. That means the aesthetic appearance of the light source, of the light fitting, sorry. And then also the position of the light fittings. Where are they going to be located in our plants? So there are different types of lighting. We can talk about general, accent, task, information, and decorative lighting. We'll see here in this slide, we can see some examples just in a small space. How can we locate different types of light? So it's important to understand one thing. Normally in one space, in one room, we don't just use one type of light. We use different types of light that complement each other. So in this case, the top plan on the left side, the general lighting, it's providing the light necessary for the whole room. Then when we go to the task lighting, it's light that it's emphasizing the place where we are going to perform a specific type of activity like playing the piano that we need to focus more. And then we go to the accent lighting that can kind of create an emphasis in a specific places where you want to emphasize things. That could be a painting on the wall, or it could be like a table lamp next or above, let's say, the fireplace. It could be many different things depending again on the let's say the feelings that you want your users to have inside your space. So it's always important to think that it's just not like one, it's like a different types of layers on top of each other that creates different type of, let's say, needs or answers different type of needs in terms of artificial lighting. In terms of general lighting, we have different, we can have the overhead central pendant, like the one that we see in the right side. We could have hub lighter, wall washers, fluorescent strip lights. So there is another example of overhead central pendants here, like those three ones. Then some examples of hub lighters in kind of a different ways to apply it into the design. All washers. Again, all of the three examples, they represent hall washers and how the light, it's kind of distribute within the walls and creates a different kind of pattern and rhythm inside the building. We can also have fluorescent strips lights, and again, three other examples how to use it. Now, when we come to the accent light, it's display lighting that, and normally also the spotlight. It focus on a single area. It also adds interest and draws attention to special features. The accent light sources could be low voltage halogen spotlights, ceiling mounted spotlights, mini spots, low voltage table lamps, and picture lights. We have a couple of examples here. Again, we continue to see some that emphasize, and look that most of them, they incorporate different types of lighting together. They don't just rely in one. And I'm not just talking about artificial versus natural, but different types of artificial. Then we have what we call the task lighting that help us to see better when focusing on a certain job. This is mainly used in kitchens, bathrooms, and offices. We have examples here on the left side. And it distributes the light in a particular direction where we actually have to perform a specific task. Normally this type of light, it's done in a way that has to be able to eliminate any kind of glare, because it's important for us to focus on our task and be able to perform to the maximum comfort. Now, the task light sources could be desk lamps, could also be the fluorescent strips. And we have here in this free picture some examples of this type of light. Now, there's another light that it's important to use indoors and outdoors. We have examples here in staircases, also to kind of emphasize locations of different things in a building, that it's what we call information lighting. It's the design for safety and comfort, and it's also used in stairways and garages. Like, it provides you information about maybe like a location of a different, let's say, a level on the floor, location of a specific activity within the same floor, or it provides you enough light to be able to use like a staircase. The decoration lighting, it's also an important type of light that we use, and normally it's like in special places, so it doesn't happen, let's say, everywhere, but it's like a special feature in a project. So it's decorative, but at the same time it has to be functional. So both things, it has to fulfill both things. But mainly it wants to create kind of a visual accents in a room. It wants to give a special and creative, let's say, element in a space. So we have here some more examples. And even examples of different types of light, like the ones you see in the middle, they are floor lamps that sometimes can even be used as sitting areas too. There are some criteria that we need to follow when we are looking for lights. So we have here like a kind of a short checklist. We need to be able to choose that from the functional criteria. We have to be able to see the cost of it, that it's the economic criteria, and we also have to look for the quality of the light, that it's related to the aesthetic criteria. In terms of the artificial lighting, we have different type of light fittings. We can have table lights, floor lamps, spotlights, wall lights, downlight strips, ceiling, wall washers, chandeliers, uplighters. There are different types of fittings that you can choose from. So I think the best thing that you can do, again, is to go to these websites that I'm leaving you here. Some of them, they are not just specific for lighting. You'll see that they also have furniture and other elements or components of the architecture that you can also use, like Vitra or Cartel. So just go inside them and see what you can find that can maybe inspire you or give you some clue or idea or solution for a specific problem that you are facing in your design. Thank you so much.